bringing attention to the destruction of the 3 World Trade Center towers in New York City on September 11, 2001, and a whole lot more. This is 9/11 Freefall. Hello, everybody. I'm Bernie Suarez, and I'm here with Andrew Steele, and we're coming to you on the internet and around the world via nolinesradio.org. We are also available on 911freefall.com, where you can tune in to listen into any of our previous shows, as you can also listen to an archive on nolinesradio.org, as well as YouTube and everywhere, wherever we are. We're out there. Hi, everybody, and welcome to 9/11 Freefall. This radio show is committed to 9/11 Truth. We are committed to the scientific evidence surrounding the events of 9/11. We are also committed to exposing the official story of 9/11. I call it the official story myth. I have a lot of other names for that. And we are also committed to bringing attention to organizations that focus on the facts and the science of 9/11. Primarily, an organization we talk about all the time is called Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, people. And this is a non-profit organization dedicated to the pursuit of academic truth with respect to the destruction of the 3 World Trade Center towers on September 11th, 2001. Hey, Andy, how are you? And, well, I got to tell you right now, I'm excited to be here. We got another show this week, and we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff.
Well, I'm fired up like always, Bernie, and, and it really fires me up, too. I'm very excited because, as I kind of do some of the maintenance work that's involved with the show and kind of researching and seeing we're getting a lot of hits at 911freefall.com, and I see our show being mirrored at other sites, other YouTube channels doing it, and I say, great guns, go ahead and spread the word, spread that. And there's no more important time than now to spread shows like this, spread the information from AE 9/11 Truth, other great 9/11 Truth activists out there putting out stuff. They need, the help as well, because, when I watched, television on the anniversary of 9/11, knowing what I'm going to see, knowing I'm going to see a bunch of propaganda, a bunch of emotion being played on, to distract from the scientific truth, along with other truths about that day. The main theme that I saw coming up was, we need to move on. All right, and I can actually give you some quotes from, ABC News headline: "Sense of moving on emerges on 9/11 anniversary." New York Times: "For some, moving on from 9/11 means scaling back." And then we have, let's see. 9/11 remembrance, is it time to move on, from the Dallas Morning News. So basically, what they're saying is we need to put this in the past. We've thoroughly scared you, and we're also giving you a new 9/11 with the stuff that's going on overseas. And even though we talk about 9/11 science truth on the show, we're not in a bubble. We know everything that's happening, around there. So you're getting the sense of, this event now, as everybody's starting to wake up, everybody's starting to see the truth as AE 9/11 Truth's info, especially, is really breaking through, and we're going to go, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Don't look back. Let's move on now. We've exploited this for as much as we can. We're going to give you new things. Don't look at that. Don't look at the man behind the curtain. And that's the message that's being given to us. But the great thing is that people are waking up. I talk to people left and right. It's a lot different than it was years ago. Now, I talk about this and they'll say, I've heard about that Building 7 thing. You have a DVD. People are becoming more and more ready to accept this information, to take it, to look at it with a more critical eye. And so that is why organizations like AE 9/11 Truth, like I said, need your help, because we need people to act as the modern day Paul Revere's, as I always say, and get that info out there. Because I'm not ready to move on. I'm not moving on one single bit. I'm going to be here every week. So are you, Bernie, and so are the tons and tons of other activists out there that are shouting their heads off, pointing to the truth, because the truth will set us all free.
That's right, it will. And you talked about the media, and this is what we're going to be talking about, people, today. We're going to be talking about the mass media And I don't even know where to begin, so I'm going to put most of that off for a little bit later. We're going to cover a couple little things here before we get started. The media is unbelievable. They are, I guess they're having a hard time because the truth is getting out there with every single day, this 9/11 truth and the science behind it, just the pure science of it, and they can't stop it, and that's what that documentary we've been talking a lot about, and that's called 9/11 Explosive Evidence. Experts Speak Out. And well, this week we're going to be talking about non-experts speaking out that are not only are they not experts, not only do they not present any facts ever, not only have they never presented any hard facts with 9/11, but they are given microphones to speak to millions of people. We've been highlighting Mr. Glenn Beck over there and his network and everything he's been known as the Glenn Beck Deception for all kinds of reasons. We're going to be talking about some of these other people today in these networks that are working very desperately to, again, demonize 9/11 truth. And when you don't have science and reason and solid facts, you have to demonize people. We will always challenge those individuals on the science. So, absolutely. So we're going to cover a lot of things. Well, let's see here. We like to in the truth camp. One of the things there's a lot going on, right, Andy? In terms of there's some big victories in terms of media. We're going to cover media censorship of 9/11 truth. But today, one of the topics we want to cover at the front of this program is the good news with the documentary 9/11 Explosive Evidence. Experts Speak Out, and PBS. You want to jump on that one and let everyone know what's going on with that.
Absolutely, Bernie. Well, right now, if you go to ae911truth.org, you're going to see the top headline says, "A new 9/11 truth documentary among most watch on PBS this week." Okay, so they, that even though they want to try to marginalize people that talk about this stuff and claim that this is just some kind of fringe, well, whenever something gets out there, like Experts Speak Out, a great film, can't say it enough, then they break all of these records because people want to see this. People want real information, okay? And they're not eating the junk food of the mainstream media anymore, and this is a perfect example. And
I want to provide an update. This article was written on September 5th. Right now, we know that the documentary did hit number 1 and has been holding up on number 1 as of the time of the recording of this show here today. So 9/11 Explosive Evidence, Experts Speak Out, number 1 on PBS. And that has been a topic of conversation and over the last couple of weeks here. Number 1, people want to know the truth. And why would they not want to? Because that's the least that we could do for ourselves as a human species, is to be true to ourselves and pursue the truth free from political influence and all that stuff. So, all right, well, that is the big story there on ae911truth.org. Read all about it, people. When you go there, check it out. That's one good place to go to keep up on what is going on inside the truth movement, the segments of the truth movement dealing with the science. That is how we have been able to move this far, and why 9/11 Truth continues to grow. It's because of the scientific evidence, which we focus on in this show. So there it is, people. Also, what else do we want to do? I knew last week, the last show we had here, we had Rena Patty and Pam Senzi. They're on their little journey. They're on bikes, and they're traveling from the western coast of Washington State all the way across the country on bicycles, all the way to New York City and Building 7 out there. That's where that journey is going to end, and their story's all on the internet. If you go to 911journeyfortruth.org. I'll say that again, 911journeyfortruth.org. See what they're up to. We had them on our show last time, and the ladies are doing well, and they're handing out those documentaries, the Experts Speak Out documentaries, to power figures throughout the country. This stuff is happening everywhere, so the establishment is definitely, as usual, very nervous, wanting to demonize 9/11 Truth, looking for ways to distract attention from this awakening that's going on everywhere.
You're right, and Bernie, the genius of what they're doing is it focuses. Well, first of all, it gets publicity to the, to the issue, but it also they're focusing on personal interactions, and there is no better way to get a message to somebody than with a personal interaction. Now, unfortunately, when you're dealing with 300 million people in the United States, as an organization, as activist groups have to, focus a lot on internet outreach, have to focus on, trying to get through to mass media, things like this. But on the sidelines, what you can do as an individual activist is like what Rena Patty and Pam Sensi are doing. Is they're talking to people, and I notice this too with like my own life. When I sit there and I can talk to somebody for a half hour, and it's not just a movie. It's not just something that's written on the internet that somebody can look at or don't look at. You have a real dialogue there, and they'll be interested. They'll want to know more about your point of view. And this is what the greatness of what they're doing right now. And this is like, I just want to throw some ideas out there to the average person. I mean, if you're a lady and you're out in the bar and somebody that you like is talking to you and wants your phone number, well, and you give your phone number, write a web page on there, right? ae911truth.org, right? 911freefall.com, and someone will say, hey, I met this beautiful woman out, and she gave me this information, and now it's changed my life. If you're I don't want to tell people to write websites on Federal Reserve notes because God forbid that's illegal, even though nobody would ever catch you. But that would be a great way to spread info. But I mean, there's so many ways to do this. You can hand out information, but that personal interaction is the best way to do it.
Absolutely. And one thing they can know, if you point people to 911freefall.com, they will have access to information that is what they need to watch in order to start considering the evidence with some integrity. So, absolutely. Well, we're going to do a couple things. And before we do, I just want to declare right now, I'm doing it right here. I'm declaring checkmate, and I'm declaring game over on the establishment and the mass media who wants to ignore the evidence of 9/11 with this viral spreading of the Experts Speak Out documentary that has been made possible by Colorado Public TV. So we want to give them credit, a PBS station out there. With all that and with all the work that's being done and the efforts and the tours and the 9/11 Truth, Journey for Truth, and all these efforts, this show and the truth and the spreading of the truth, I want to just declare checkmate on the establishment. And we're going to hear from the establishment and a lot of their claims, and we'll put it all in perspective in this show. So there it is. You want to ignore the evidence, the truth of 9/11? Checkmate, because you guys are failing, and the truth is getting out there. It doesn't take a rocket science. We've said it many times. You do not need any degree to understand 9/11 truth. So there it is. All right. Well, we're going to move on, Andy, and we're going to start off by doing our customary moment of silence, where we're going to hold off all sounds, and we're going to take 10 seconds to remember the victims of 9/11 and their suffering families and friends and all of Americans that have suffered, everyone who has suffered because of 9/11. Let's take 10 seconds of silence starting now. And with that, we continue. And again, I always remind our audience that we do that simply to keep ourselves focused and to keep our audience focused on why we do what we do, why we do this show. This show is not about making stars out of anybody or celebrities or any of that stuff. This is about honoring the victims of 9/11 and seeking justice for the about 3,000 people who lost their lives on that day. And that's why we do this. And if there's something said on this show that somebody wants to debate, feel free to contact us and make your comment on our videos. Those videos on YouTube do have comment sections. And post some evidence. If you think that something said on the show is wrong or incorrect, please. We invite that kind of challenge. All right. And speaking of challenges, well, one last thing I want to mention to our audience: if the opinions expressed on this show, mentioned on this show, does not represent the opinions of architects and engineers or any other organization that we mention. This is our show, and all points made are our own opinion. So with that, our question of the day I have chosen, and we're going to stick to Glenn Beck since we're going to be talking about the media. And, for those of you listening in for the first time, Glenn Beck has been very, very clear and very, very vocal that somehow 9/11 truthers are those that understand the science of 9/11 and have pursued justice with an open mind and have put the word out about 9/11 truth are simply dangerous people. So here we go. So the question is, since Glenn Beck has refused to address the hard evidence of 9/11, now we're talking about all the evidence that we talk about on this show every week. And we're talking about the scientific papers, and we're talking about the experts, and we're talking about Newton's laws and science and everything we talk about. Since Glenn Beck has refused to address the hard evidence of 9/11, should he be considered dangerous? That's the question, and I'm not trying to be a wise guy. If someone refuses to look at the basic science and can't defend their position, we have exposed the computer simulation models that National Institute of Standards and Technology has put forth to the world. That is their argument, people. We opened up this show talking about the National Construction Safety Team Act. I think we spent a couple weeks talking about stuff like this and talking about the scientific method. This show, 911freefall.com, this show is built on the science of 9/11, pure science. And we've started several of our shows talking about the scientific method, talking about the National Construction Safety Team Act, and exposing this computer model science. So if Glenn Beck has a response to any of the actual evidence, and it relies on this computer simulation, then the question is, can he be considered dangerous? Because if you just believe anything that's made up, then I can make an argument where he is dangerous because then he's easy to convince on other things. We saw that in Germany throughout history. Anytime we've seen tyranny and fascism, it just has to do with people believing things just because they have to believe it, because the government says to believe it. It's not based on logic and science. So we're going to be talking more about that in a few minutes.
Yeah, and I just want to add, too, I can already hear the nasally arguments, Glenn Beck's got a right to his free speech and all of that. No, and nobody's calling for Glenn Beck's speech to be limited. What we're asking, and when we say, is he dangerous, we're not talking in the sense, that he will. That, where he says, these nine, and we're going to play examples of this later in the show, so you'll be able to hear it for yourself, where he says these truthers are dangerous, they're going to kill the president. And I'm not kidding. You're going to hear the clips. All right, we're not talking in that sense. We're talking in the sense of a loudmouth, with a microphone, able to create a mentality, because it's the official line that's being put out. It's what the kind of mentality that they're trying to whip up that led to a Marine being thrown in a psych ward without any justification. A few weeks ago we talked about that, okay? Dangerous in the sense that, yeah, he's got a right to his free speech, but we have to use our free speech to beat back this nonsense, this kind of basically this propaganda, Goebbels-style propaganda. And it's not just Glenn Beck, but he's the most infamous. And when we play these clips later in the show, you're gonna so some of them are a little old, but the mentality remains, and it's not just Glenn Beck. It's also bleeds into fiction. It happens on other people's shows too, and this is what we are fighting against, because it plays on people's fears. It plays on people's basic desire to fit into society. And I'm sure there's clinical terms for these. I'm not a trained psychiatrist, but people's basic desires to kind of just get through the day and live their lives. It plays on all of these things to try to suppress this reality, basically cover up a major crime here. Okay, so I wanted to add that, again, nobody's calling for Glenn Beck's free speech to be impinged on, but we are asking is Glenn Beck's speech is it dangerous in the sense that it's going to create this mentality where people are going to be afraid to use their own?
His call, every time he speaks up, Glenn Beck is calling people away from the scientific method. And unless he can address that point right there, he has nothing to stand on. He has to address the issue of the scientific method. And if Glenn Beck can walk anybody through on how the official story in his computer model simulation followed the scientific method, then he is welcome to try and make that point. People have walked away from the 9/11 Commission, and we've had whistleblowers, we've had scientists, experts have spoken out, ordinary citizens, concerned, critical thinkers. You don't even have to be a scientist to ask these simple questions. And he has failed to connect the dots for us. We were let down by the many government voices who said they had evidence for bin Laden, and it is not a crime, or in fact, we're pushing back the other way. It is arguably a crime to stop someone from asking simple questions based on what we are observing. And what we have seen here with the media, and Glenn Beck is a great example of that. We'll be showing some, playing some audio from other networks. They have positioned themselves in front of reason, science, and that basic curiosity that we have as human beings. And that curiosity works well with our intuition and our intelligence. Science is based on asking critical, sincere questions. When someone steps in the way of having someone ask critical, sincere questions, that person is now acting as a tyrant, or they're blocking the natural process of nature, regardless of what the topic may be, without any political influence, regardless what the question may be. If somebody says, I want to know why 1 + 1 is not equal 3, someone should be able to, that's okay to ask that question. If someone says, I believe that 1 + 1 = 5, and I want to be proven wrong, the person saying that deserves an explanation. And if they don't see the explanation, then one can conclude that perhaps they have a learning disability or whatever. But that person is allowed to ask that basic question. If someone thinks that, regardless, anything could happen, it's okay to ask the question. There are no questions out there that are harsh or that are not allowed. There are no illegal questions out there, regardless. There's no model throughout history to justify the demonization of any question. Anyone is allowed to ask questions. What this establishment has done with people like Glenn Beck and the bought-out corporate mainstream media is they've blocked off the question. It's almost like the questions represent the entry area of an auditorium before you actually go in the auditorium, where the facts are in there. Before you get into the facts, you have to go into the corridor there, that first section there, and they're blocking off the exit before you could even ask the questions. Oh, you're actually asking questions? Well, you must be dangerous. You must be the bad guy, because we're not going to let you get to the next level, which is answering the question, to providing the evidence or comparing the evidence, like comparing the NIST computer model science with the thermite paper and the evidence and a simple demonstration of Newton's laws. That's the hard evidence, and a demonstration of the thermodynamic laws and the laws of conservation of momentum. Those are, if someone can put together those experiments and produce that evidence and produce the paper of the dust in the World Trade Center, that's hard evidence. On the other end spectrum, you have computer model simulations based on trust us. So if someone asks the simple questions to determine which one is the right one, and you're demonizing them for asking the basic question, that behavior of preventing someone or demonizing someone for asking the basic question, that behavior is what we are intending to expose in this show today.
Well, you're right, and I don't want to get any deeper than I intended to on this show, but like when I study religion, in a lot of cases, it seems that what's being emphasized is a battle between people's higher intellect and their natural animal emotions, and on a metaphorical sense. And again, this is not, I'm not talking about any specific religion or anything. I'm just talking about my own observations. It seems on a metaphorical sense, the side of light and good is reaching your higher intellect, thinking about you're thinking about your fellow man, but looking at things with through intellectual eyes, through things like the scientific method that we've talked about on the show. And then your animalistic urges are basically your selfish desires, where you see somebody eating something that you want, you knock them over and take it. You basically somebody ticks you off, you just kind of bash their head in and move on. That's kind of like our animal origins that we've evolved from in that sense. And so what you see in this case where with 9/11 Truth is you see our animal emotions being played on. Associating anybody that's using their intellect, with negative emotions, because this is what 9/11 was. In terms of like a psyop, we have to get them. We've been hit. We have to respond. We have to fight back right now. We need to tap into those animal emotions. Well, they want to keep that 9/12 mentality. And you hear Glenn Beck talk about this in his own commentary. We need to be like we were on 9/12. Well, people were pretty bloodthirsty and hateful on 9/12 from what I remember, because everybody had just been kind of had their system shocked, and they were looking to lash out. Well, they're trying to maintain this animalistic response to a threat in the last 11 years since the event happened. And what they want to do too, because humans are communal. I don't want to say animals. I don't think of us as animals, but we're communal beings. They want to appeal to that by saying that anybody who is associated with 9/11 Truth is also going to be an outcast. And you can see this in the clips we're going to play. People like Ron Paul, they badger him and get him to disavow it and present a public spectacle of disassociating with 9/11 Truth. Deborah Medina, she was a woman who ran for governor, to try to publicly make her disavow it, and if she doesn't, she's an outcast too. The Ground Zero imam, the guy who was going to build the community center, we're going to play some clips from Bill O'Reilly trying to go after him because he was associated with someone who came out for 9/11 Truth. And so what they're doing is they're playing on your desire, because there's a survival instinct that comes into effect when you want, that you have to be communal, you have to fit in with the group to some extent to survive. And so they want to play on your fear of being ostracized to basically cement the bubble of disinformation that protects this official lie.
Absolutely. And what we're going to do, with all that said, let's play a Glenn Beck montage. Now, we've said a lot in this. The first video, we're going to hear him basically putting 9/11 truthers right on in front of the train, or the bus, throwing us under the bus, talking about this first clip with regard to this Holocaust Museum shooter. Listen to Glenn Beck try to make the link that this guy is somehow associated with 9/11 Truth. Listen to the magic of mainstream media propaganda. Mr. Beck at his best right here, linking 9/11 truthers to this man who was arrested, James Van Brun, I guess is his name, and 88-year-old shooter at this Holocaust Museum. And listen to Glenn Beck say, quote, 9/11 truthers, at the end he says, who would also like to destroy our country. Tell us, Glenn Beck. Come on, talk to us.
One of the, Mike, let me go to you. One of the guys, or one of the groups that I've been warning about for a very long time are these 9/11 truthers. It is the information that we have at this point is this guy is a hero in the 9/11 truther community. Don't know if that's true or not. That is the early report. These are people that, it's totally fine to speak out against the Fed, but these are whacked out conspiracy. The government has planned 9/11. The Jews were involved, etc., etc. And from what we have seen in early reports, this guy is being held up as somebody. They liked him because he'll actually do something about it.
Yeah.
When it comes on shore, there's going to be a go, go, go mentality. And that's what this is. There is a mentality in our enemies. Our country is now vulnerable. Those people who would like to destroy us, our enemies like Al-Qaeda. They'd like to destroy us, and they will work with anyone. There are also people like white supremacists or 9/11 truthers that would also like to destroy the country. They'll work with anybody they can.
There you go, people. Glenn Beck right there at his best. This next segment we want to play is Glenn Beck right back in the captain's chair, mouthing off concerns for the president. He says that, according, when Van Jones was appointed czar, here's Glenn Beck talking about how that makes the president is now in danger because Van Jones, he's even a 9/11 truther, people. So we're going to play that right now. Let's listen in. Tell us, Glenn.
The most dangerous time in any regime, especially a radicalized regime, is when it is in collapse. Watch the uber left. Pray that Obama moves to the center. If he does, pray that the Secret Service care for that man. That man is never left alone. He has invited 9/11 truthers into the White House and into his administration. If they believe that he is just another one of these guys, he is in danger. We've been waiting for the White House to give us an answer to something that I think is absolutely unbelievable and wildly out of step with the American people. It is something regarding Obama's Green Jobs Czar. I told the White House that we would like a response by 5:30. I wanted to lead the show with this, but I wanted to be fair. There is no response now from the White House. And that is pretty much what we expected to happen, but not what I hoped for. I was hoping for change. Because I wouldn't even know how to defend or even respond to this revelation. I think that's probably why the White House hasn't responded. We've been talking to you about Van Jones, a special advisor to the president, because he has the president's ear. He has the president's ear, and we know, we have verified, we have his long record, his own words written and spoken. He is a self-admitted communist. He is a self-admitted radical who, he has said in his own words, and we have shown you the tape, he wants to fundamentally change America. I learned this afternoon that he is also a 9/11 truther.
Now, folks, I want you to pay attention to what is going on in the attack on 9/11 truth happening here. Because what you're being presented is, or what you're seeing is the right-left paradigm that, being used to basically alienate this segment of the population that they want cut off from everybody else. They want everybody not paying attention to them. Okay, so you have Glenn Beck, who's talking to conservatives over there on Fox News, making this big thing. He's talking about it like it's not even like it's just undesirable, but like it's almost like it's potentially criminal. And he chooses his words very carefully. Okay, he'll say the word Al Qaeda. I mean, this was in the first clip, and then there's other groups who, like white supremacists and 9/11 truthers. So they're trying to tie 9/11 truth with these very undesirable groups. This is, obviously victims' family members, people like scholars like you've heard here on the show. He's trying to tie them with these undesirable groups. And he's talking to the right and saying that, this is a very bad thing. They're in leagues with Al Qaeda and the white supremacists. And now, Obama's associated with them. Now the conservatives don't like Obama. They don't like, Obama's liberal people, but there's also a message here to liberals, because what was Van Jones's response? Now, that Van Jones is not a 9/11 truther. Now, he might have signed a petition at one point, and he explained that somebody put it in front of him, and, he signed it and didn't know what he was signing. I take the man at his word.
Well,
whatever.
Let me jump in, Andy, and I will say I personally confronted him in Los Angeles one time, and he specifically said that to me. So you don't have to rely on anyone else saying it. He actually said it to me, that he did not intend to sign that petition, and he essentially disavowed himself from the petition and from 9/11 Truth.
There you go. And so what the left gets in this message from Glenn Beck, because they're being propagandized by Glenn Beck too, they're getting this sense, by seeing Van Jones so vehemently separate himself, that by seeing Obama letting him go, they're getting the message that this is undesirable as well. That if you're on the left and you're associated, there's people, first of all, I tend to lean conservative, and so it's not all people on the left that are in 9/11 truth, but there's a good number of them who, if you're on the left and you're associated with this, it's an undesirable thing. And I'm sorry, there's pack mentality in every kind of group. It's just how humans are wired. And so they're going to see this. They're going to see, some person who might look up to, who shares Van Jones's views on the world, will see this, and they're going to mimic this behavior. We're going to play another clip right here where Glenn Beck, now Deborah Medina, she was a conservative who was running for governor of Texas against Rick Perry and Kay Bailey Hutchinson, and she was doing very well. Well, what they wanted her to do, because, you know, a lot of her support was people on, you know, activists on the internet who are also 9/11 Truth, you know, so a certain segment of them. He was looking to make her disavow. And so what we see people in the public light being questioned, having to take this loyalty oath to the official story on camera to try to further shun the truth movement. And if they aren't, then it becomes a public crucifixion of that person, because then they're thoroughly executed their public image.
And we'll what we'll do is we'll loop that in. We'll also play some of that Ron Paul, and notice the same tactic, this kind of grilling and drilling, trying to get the establishment, these people, to deny essentially 9/11 Truth for the sake of a perceived legitimacy. Let's listen in.
$3 billion net personal income increase in the first year.
I have, when I said that I was going to have you on, you can't imagine the mail, pro and con, that I received. There was a theme that ran against you, and that is, you're a 9/11 truther.
Well, there's lots of mud that people would like to throw at Deborah Medina and make stick. The truth is, I'm an everyday, ordinary person. I am fighting for the things that our founders fought for, those very basic principles of a constitutional republic, and I'm going to champion people that hold their government accountable, hold me accountable, but that's the first time I've heard that accusation, so that's an interesting one.
Right. Here's, then let me be more frank and ask you the question. Do you believe the government was any way involved with the bringing down of the World Trade Centers on 9/11?
I don't have all of the evidence there, Glenn, so I'm not in a place. I have not been out publicly questioning that. I think some very good questions have been raised in that regard. There's some very good arguments, and I think the American people have not seen all of the evidence there, so I've not taken a position on that.
I think the people in America might think that might be a yes.
Well,
do you have advisors? Do you have advisors?
I'm not going to take a position where I think good questions have been raised and they're not answered.
Do you have advisors that advise you, or people that are around you that are 9/11 truthers?
Not to my knowledge.
Would you, if you found out that there were, would you disavow them, like the president should have? But I mean, he escorted him out in the middle of the night. Van Jones was a 9/11 truther. If you found out that people around you or advising you were 9/11 truthers, would you disavow them or allow them to continue to advise you?
Well, you know, that's a federal issue. We're very focused on issues in Texas, on Texas state government. I'm certainly not into mind control or thought policing people.
No, that's a pretty big one.
We've got a very diverse team in this state, and it is because Texans are standing shoulder to shoulder to support and defend a Constitution. I frankly don't have time to go through and do psychological testing on people and know every thought or detail that they have. I don't see us having a team of radical individuals, if you will. I think that there are certainly some that are looking, trying to use scare tactics. Are there?
No, I don't think there's a scare tactic. Deborah, you've answered the question.
And be a part of our team that have not gotten on the team. Absolutely, there are, but I can't.
I understand.
I don't know.
Deborah,
that's so out of context. It's difficult for me to answer. I guess it would depend on how vocal they were about that and how much I thought it colored whatever other talent they brought to the table.
Yeah. Okay, Deborah, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and best of luck to you.
Thank you, Glenn.
You bet. Bye-bye. I think
problematic.
While I don't endorse anyone, I think I can write her off the list. Let me take another look at Kay Bailey Hutchinson if I have to. Rick, I think you and I could French kiss right now.
Let me tell you something. He's a damn handsome man.
He's a damn handsome man.
Looks good in a pair of jeans.
Wow.
He's a handsome man.
Wow. The fastest way back to 4%.
Can you, I don't know how you address people who are so deeply into conspiracy, but can you?
I don't know what I would be supposed to be doing. No, I mean, I don't think there's any evidence.
Is there any evidence, or is there any doubt in your mind that the United States government was not involved in the September 11th attacks, that we did not bring down World Trade Center number 7?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that is true. They did not. But the connection may be...
All right, and there it is, people. Glenn Beck laying it out, just giving these people, these important public figures, the Glenn Beck test of, are you on our side or not? Getting them to somehow try to get them to deny 9/11 truth, and almost as if he's protecting the agenda that continues now for 11 plus years. There it is. This next video that we're going to play, it's an audio for our audience listening in. One thing that jumped out at me with this is Joe Scarborough with MSNBC. I kind of watched this, and just he brings his experts on, or his commentators on, and it seems as though these grown men, supposedly, he's got his two pundits there, and they're just one, it feels to me at least, like it's a fraternity of guys just kind of just talking after a game, just putting out little opinions and bouncing little comments around without any form of structure. There is no reason, any logic, any science, any facts to defend what they're saying. So it's a free-for-all here. Mr. Joe Scarborough, along with his two guests, Steve Adubato, I'm hopefully pronouncing that correctly, and Matthew Felling, a media director for Centers of Media and Public Affairs, and Mr. Steve Adubato is MSNBC media analyst. Wow, what does that mean?
What you're seeing here is, Rosie O'Donnell was talking about 9/11 truth, talking about Building 7 on The View. Now, people like Rosie O'Donnell, people like myself, people like Bernie, if somebody attacks us, we don't really care. You're not gonna get us with the mass peer pressure thing. And Rosie's just like that. So what they do is they're going after Barbara Walters, okay, one of the producer of the show. Okay, they can't go through this arena, they're going to go through that. And you got to listen to the things that they say in this clip, because what they're doing, saying things like, oh, it can't be easy to age on TV, there's just picking away at her ego, picking away at her, basically. Imagine somebody saying this to like your wife, your mother or something, picking away just at who she is in a desperate attempt to get her to silence Rosie O'Donnell, and Rosie did end up leaving that show.
And we better warn our audience that what you're about to hear has nothing to do with science and reason. It's just a bunch of guys talking and hammering away at the Barbara Walters career, talking about how, the title of the video is called The Sad Demise of Barbara Walters. And as you pointed out, Andy, it's almost like they're going after her. It seems that they don't even reserve any attacks for Rosie O'Donnell. So they kind of throw her in the basket and then go after Barbara Walters because Rosie O'Donnell is speaking facts, and she's defending the truth of the science of 9/11, and she's defending the truth of what we all saw in those videos and the testimonies of the people that were actually there. So God forbid we should have to tackle anything she's doing, so let's go after Barbara Walters, won't we? So it's just another tactic. Unbelievable stuff. People, let's listen in to this triad of attack coming from Joe Scarborough, Steve Adubato, and Matthew Felling. Tell us, guys.
Barbara Walters' hand-picked co-host, Rosie O'Donnell, is now suggesting the United States government was responsible for the September 11th attacks and willingly killed 3,000 Americans at the Twin Towers to protect George W. Bush's friends at Enron. The ABC host said this, quote, "Firefighters withdrawing from the area stated that the building was going to blow up. WTC 7 contained offices of the FBI, Department of Defense, and IRS, which contained prodigious amounts of corporate tax fraud, including Enron's." And on TV, Barbara Walters has allowed Rosie's radical rants to be broadcast front and center on Barbara's ABC show, at the expense of herself and others.
Elizabeth, you have to stop. You have to stop. You can ask a question, but you can't just blather on your opinion.
And who defends Rosie's radical rants? Well, veteran journalist Barbara Walters. Take a look.
Rosie's opinions are, I'm not going to say this every day.
Yeah, Rosie's opinions are
Rosie's opinions.
Right.
But are Rosie's unhinged ravings causing the sad demise of a once great journalist? Here now is Matthew Felling, Media Director for the Center for Media and Public Affairs. Also with us, Steve Adebato, MSNBC Media Analyst. I want to ask you first, Matthew Felling, about Barbara Walters. We've talked about how she had a great career, how she was a trailblazer, but you look at what she's doing now. You look at the fluff pieces for the Academy Awards. You look at the softball questions that she threw to Hugo Chavez. And then The View. The View is a train wreck where you've got Rosie O'Donnell suggesting that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is innocent, misstating facts left and right, and then coming out and suggesting that the United States government killed 3,000 of its own citizens to protect Enron. How sad has Barbara Walters become? Why is she allowing Rosie O'Donnell to destroy her once great reputation?
Yeah, and I grew up watching Barbara Walters, and I grew up thinking, wow, she's really got it all put together, and she's really committed to getting out the truth. And she is the grande dame of journalism. And I think it is time that we announce a Baba Wawa intervention. Everybody needs to stop and just come to her and say, Barbara, we understand what's happening, but you really need to check yourself. Get Hugh Downs, get John Stossel, get some of the celebrities from the Academy Awards specials. I mean, dig up Jack Palance. He'll set her straight. I mean, somebody just needs to sit her down and say, listen, we understand you are really hungry for relevance, and it's really tough to age on TV, and you're afraid of being phased out. But at the same time, look at what you're giving up. Rosie is off the reservation. And yes, the food fight, yes, the cluster bomb that is every morning's program is good for ratings, but also it's just, she used to be on a pedestal, and it just gets hatcheted at with every time Rosie O'Donnell says something about 9/11 conspiracies or the fillings in your teeth being like a mind-numbing government plot against you. I mean, it's gone too far at this point.
It really has. And Steve Adebato, to think that this is a lady who really became a superstar, a journalistic superstar, when she got in the middle and reported on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now look at how low she's gone, where she's getting between Donald Trump and Rosie O'Donnell. It's really outrageous, isn't it?
You know, I have to tell you, Joe, it's disappointing as well, because it seems to me that while Barbara owns half of The View, she's really not in control of The View, and that's what 600,000 new viewers, if the numbers are right, Joe, 600 new viewers have come to The View. That wasn't the case before Rosie got there. When Meredith left, it was flat, nothing was happening. They need this moderator that's clearly out of control, and Rosie is. It says all the things you said, and she's worse because she's so rude. Barbara sits back and says, you know what? I want to stand up to you, but I'm not going to. You know why, Rosie? Because I acknowledge that you're in control. Now, she's not going to articulate.
Now, with our next clip, we have this when the whole controversy about they called it the Ground Zero Mosque, Cultural Center, what have you, was going on. Bill O'Reilly used this issue as a way to attack 9/11 Truth. Now, this was at a time when there was a lot going on, victories for the 9/11 Truth movement. There was a press conference held by AE 9/11 Truth in D.C. And they shined a third beam of light for Building 7 in New York City. Wicked cool publicity there. We had We Are Change holding successful protests in the city on the anniversary. So there was a lot of gains made that year. So they went into full attack mode, and Bill O'Reilly was leading the charge. So he was using this drummed up issue of the Ground Zero Mosque, and he brought on these I don't even want to say reporters, pundits, whatever. Mary Catherine Ham, Juan Williams. And then they ended up having Brett Hume on there, and there's a whole long, it was almost an entire show he spent on this thing. So we're going to put that up on 9/11 Freefall along with these other clips for you to watch the whole thing. We can only play a few clips of it here, but note like some of these quotes here, where Mary Catherine Ham says, public figures are required to distance themselves from 9/11 truthers because that is the decent and right thing to do.
Yeah.
We have Britt Hume saying 9/11 truthers are in bad odor here in America, and they're just trying to cement this narrative. If they can't get at 9/11 truthers, people like me and Bernie, because we really don't care what Bill O'Reilly has to say. They can't get at our egos. They're going to get at the people around us. They're going to try to disassociate us from our relationships. They're going to make an undesirable class out of us. So let's go ahead and listen.
Some who oppose the Ground Zero Mosque fear that the Muslims behind the proposed community center have radical ties, and evidence shows that fear may now be valid. The point man in the controversy is Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf, who continues to put forth that he is a man of peace, a moderate Muslim, who wants only the best for his own country, America, and the Muslim world. But Imam Rauf has a troubling association. This man, Assistant Imam Fayez Khan, believes that 9/11 attack was not generated by al-Qaeda, but was an inside job orchestrated by the United States itself. Documents uncovered by the Investigative Project on Terrorism show that in a blog posting, Khan said, quote, "The prime factor for the success of the criminal mission known as 9/11 did not come from the quarter known as militant Islam, although the phenomenon known as militant Islamic networks may have played a partial role, perhaps the role of a patsy and scapegoat," unquote. Now, Khan is part of a crew called Truthers who deny Muslim extremists started the war on terror. Khan was also a close associate of Imam Rauf. In 1997, Khan, Rauf, and Rauf's wife founded the American Society for the Advancement of Muslims. The three were on the board of directors. So there is no question that the truther Khan has a relationship with Rauf. And that was not made public by Rauf, a major mistake for a man under so much scrutiny. So what's going on here? Well, we asked both Rauf and Khan for comments. They declined. That is simply unacceptable and should be enough to table the entire project until clarification is forthcoming. If Imam Rauf wants to explain his relationship with Khan, we are willing to listen. But let's stop this nonsense about the community center being simply a monument to peace. Finally, let's listen to Mr. Khan.
I've been involved in the 9/11 truth movement since September 12th, 2001. We're all saying that this mainstream explanation is completely false, and there's compelling evidence to suggest not only is it false, but it was some form of inside job. We can all agree with that.
That guy shouldn't be allowed within 10 miles of Ground Zero. Joining us from Washington, Roy Locker, the managing editor of the Investigative Project on Terrorism. He had to know that we were going to find out about this guy, did he not?
Well, you'd think so. I mean, it's possible, I guess, that he doesn't know what Faiz Khan has been doing for the past 9 years.
How would that be possible? He spoke in 2006, as you pointed out, as part of this organization that Rauf started. He had to know. He had to know. It's impossible he wouldn't know.
Well, that's our thinking, too. He had to have known.
But Rauf had gone all these shows telling the American people, look, I'm a man of peace. All I want is peace. All I want is good relationship. And his associate of his, close associate of his, is a truther and a guy who says, hey, al-Qaeda didn't have anything to do with this. Maybe it's a patsy. Khan is a doctor, an MD. He works at a prestigious hospital on Long Island. He's well accepted in the community. I don't know, the Muslim community, I guess. Is it unfair of us to question Rauf for his association with this Khan, even though Khan's opinion about 9/11 is insane?
I don't think it's unfair to question the association. I mean, look, a lot of people have disagreements about whether the mosque is a good idea. That's fine. But, I mean, to not believe the 9/11, the facts around 9/11, that's really out there on the fringe. And, he should be asked to explain it.
All right? Khan is a loon. And he's a loon that is making excuses for al-Qaeda. And, he's involved with this guy, Rauf. With our lead story, the man behind the Ground Zero Mosque, Imam Rauf, and his association with the man who holds radical views on the 9/11 attack. Joining us from Washington with reaction, Fox News analyst Mary Catherine Ham and Juan Williams. We asked him point blank, what about this guy Khan? And he's running. He's running and hiding, Juan. I mean, that's crazy, is it not?
Well, it is crazy, and you know, your previous guest, Locker, said, you know, it invites questions. I think it goes beyond that. I think it invites suspicion. I think that it invites people to say, wait a second. You touched on this a minute ago. Where's the money? Where's the money coming from? And is the money linked to radical organizations? Because he says he's a moderate. The State Department says he's a moderate.
I don't know how he can be a moderate
like
if he forms an organization with a guy who runs around saying Al-Qaeda had nothing to do with 9/11, Mary Catherine. How can you be a moderate and hang with a guy like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to these situations, you look how closely the two are involved, and then you find out that this guy, the truther, has preached at the proposed location for the mosque, which is problematic, and that they founded an organization together, which is supposed to be a moderate Muslim group. If he didn't know that this guy was a truther, which I can't imagine that he didn't, then, you know, this is really problematic. He needs to come out and talk about it. I think what's going on here is this is a sensitive project in a sensitive place, and he's been waging, or should have been waging, a PR campaign since the beginning, but he's waging the worst PR campaign in the history of PR campaigns. And now you've got his friend who basically, you know, he wants to build bridges, he says, but now we've got this guy who's his buddy and has been for a long time, basically making the greatest, most blatant excuse for terrorist violence that there is, saying, no, that didn't actually happen. Now, you put that guy preaching at the proposed area, and yes, people are going to have questions.
And, of course, the left turns it into, oh, you're bigoted. Oh, if you don't trust him, you're bigoted. And now we have a headline. Now the headline comes out, hey, Ralph's pal is a truther. And all the people who say we don't trust him go, told you, told you.
You know, that everybody associated with me or Mary Catherine or you, Bill, that we're responsible for everything they say or believe.
No, but when you ask the guy, he's got to explain it. Go ahead, Mary Catherine.
And here's the thing. Rauf, the imam, now is a public figure, and he has been for quite some time. He's employed by the State Department, going around the world speaking on our behalf. So public figures in this nation are required to distance themselves from 9/11 truthers, because that is the decent and right thing to do, and he should come on your show.
You know what? You know what? Segment tonight, let's bring in Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume to talk about the political implications of the new mosque information for President Obama. Nope. I believe the Obama administration has no idea about this Rauf. They don't have any. I think tonight when they, you know, when President Obama gets his little dispatch before he goes to bed saying, hey, there's a guy named Khan who's associate of Rauf, who's a truther and doesn't believe Al-Qaeda have anything to do with it, Obama's going to look at it and go, holy you know what.
Well, I wouldn't rule that out, assuming that the story actually surfaces for him. I mean, you got to wonder, you know, the New York Post alone, and now you have picked up this story, which is available out there from that investigative project who's
it's going to be on every internet website. It'll surface, believe me. It's over. It'll surface. But here's the deal. The State Department sends this Rauf on the taxpayer's dime all over the world to preach about, you know, détente between Muslims and America, which is a good thing, by the way, that theme. They don't know anything about him.
Yeah.
Because Rauf won't explain this. All he had to do was come out today. We called him up and said, look, Bill, come on, I'll tell you who this guy is and why my association with him and whether he has anything to do with this community center or not. No way. No way. Runs, hides, and so does Khan. You can't be doing this on our dime, sending a guy like that overseas when you don't know everything about him.
Well, it does not look good for him, the imam, or this project that the guy's been apparently hanging out with a truther. Truthers are in bad odor in America, and this is a very volatile thing. This is infuriating to Americans when they hear that somebody believes that 9/11, as this guy has said, I guess he said it was obviously an inside job. Well, that is something that I did that I think is pretty abhorrent to most Americans.
Yeah.
And there we are, people. Unbelievable. Mr. Ray Locker throwing in the comment there, quote, to not believe the facts of 9/11. That's really, really out there on the fringe, he says. He should be asked to explain it. Well, Mr. Ray Locker, Bill O'Reilly, anybody else? Anybody who wants to come on? Juan Williams? Anybody? Mary? You guys come on in. We have plenty to explain to you guys. Better yet, just go straight to ae911truth.org and look for a copy of 9/11 Explosive Evidence Experts Speak Out. These people are running from these scientific DVDs like it's the plague. But we are coming for you guys. We are going to get you to watch these DVDs. They even have a petition, by the way. It's out there. It's on Vaz, I believe. But maybe there's more information about that on 911truth.org, where there is a petition circulating online for those that want to petition the Obama administration to watch 9/11 explosive evidence experts speak out. So that is out there. We are trying to explain it to you guys. But, of course, they are running from the facts. This next video, and we could be on this stuff all day long. I mean, we have, one of the tough things with this topic of the mainstream media is just finding or just selecting which videos to play and which audios to play. There is so much attack of 9/11 truth in Hollywood, and of course we're trying to focus this one on the media. Many people in the mainstream media have taken shots at the truth of 9/11, regularly equating this with lunacy, as we saw just in these videos that we've been playing. We just heard Bill say Khan is a loon in one of those videos. Just unbelievable stuff. In this next video, Dr. Kevin Barrett decides to pay a visit to Mr. Sean Hannity and Alan Colmes, again with Fox News. Fox News will always be counted on to provide us with a lot of these types of videos. We have no shortage of videos on that, since they have so heavily focused on attacking 9/11 truth for so many years, people. So this next video with Kevin Barrett, he visits the show, and let's listen. One of the things, Andy, that I was taken back by all of this was at one point you can actually hear Sean Hannity speaking right over Kevin Barrett, not wanting him to get his point across. Now, I don't know what kind of training these guys do, but if you're going to have a show on, Andy, we've had a bunch of people on. I don't think people could ever make out what they're saying if we decided to just go ahead and speak right over them. But people listening in, that's exactly what Sean Hannity does. Call it what you will. This is a supposedly a professional TV show anchor guy here, and here he is talking right over his guest. Doesn't want his audience to hear what Kevin Barrett is saying, because he's saying things like, quote, question of science, quote, you are in the minority. He's asking him about, he's trying to paint Mr. Kevin Barrett as the lone ranger in this truth, and he actually did a survey proving that over 60% of people wanted this truth of 9/11 in their college. But don't tell that to Sean Hannity. Let's listen in as Sean talks right over him. Wants no part of the truth. Tell us, Sean.
All right, Mr. Barrett, Sean Hannity here. Do you really believe that 9/11 was an inside job, not just 9/11, but Madrid and Bali and the Zarqawi operations?
Well, actually...
hang on a second.
Do
you believe personally that these are inside jobs, yes or no?
It's not quite that simple. I do know, I don't believe, I know that 9/11 was an inside job. Professor Stephen Jones has found residue of thermate on the steel samples from the World Trade Center. We now know that it was taken down in a controlled demolition.
All right, so you believe that the buildings came down in a controlled demolition, right?
Well, I don't believe it. I've looked at the evidence, and the evidence is overwhelming.
All right, the evidence is overwhelming to you because you're a conspiracy nut, but
actually,
putting all that aside...
I ask your viewers to take a look at this evidence for themselves. They can go to st911.org. That's Scholars for 9/11 Truth. Take a look. Take a look at the demolition.
I know you think
Morgan Reynolds, a former Bush administration official, says that the Bush administration blew the World Trade Center to kingdom come. That's a direct quote from a member of the Bush administration itself.
I know.
Blew
and there
the
were
World
people
Trade
that
Center
said
to
that the
kingdom come.
Jews were told to leave. Well, we've heard a lot of these sick, bizarre theories,
that's
and I don't believe any of them. But you're allowed to believe what you want, but that's not what's at hand here. The issue is whether or not you, with your bizarre theories, are the best.
I think you have the bizarre theory. You think it was 19 guys with box cutters led by a guy on dialysis in a cave in Afghanistan? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the craziest conspiracy theory of all of them.
Okay. I wish I had the Twilight Zone music. Now, here's my next question. The issue that is at hand here, you're entitled to have your opinion. I don't really care what you believe. But if we're talking about a captive group of students in a classroom, the question we've got to ask... Hang on a second. Well, they're sitting in your classroom, and you have a position of authority. I'm wondering, the question is whether or not you're the most competent to teach them. And most people think you're a nut. Most people think your views are not even worth listening to.
We just had a poll here in Madison, and we found that 90% of the respondents at Channel 3000 poll said that I should be allowed to teach. Only 10% said I shouldn't.
That's the question
and
60%, I don't think what your views are.
60% agreed with me about the questions I'm raising about 9/11. 60% of the respondents.
I think
you're in the minority.
Right to speak. I don't think this is the proper
There you are, people. Kevin Barrett taking on Sean Hannity and Alan Colmes, in particular. Sean Hannity talking right over him. That's one way to block the truth, right? Just talk right over it.
Well, you know what's important, and this is why it's important that we're going to put the videos up on 911freefall.com, because, you know, when Sean Hannity begins, he's not even looking at him. He's saying, you know, oh, Mr. Barrett, do you really believe? And what this is all scripted. This is all like the body movement, the fact that he's not even looking at him as he's doing the show. I mean, Sean Hannity's pretending to write something on his desk. What is he writing? Now, the only reason that they're doing this is they're trying to portray this image that it's undesirable. And so, you know, we're playing a lot of clips today, and why is this important? Because a lot of the people who don't want to look at the scientific evidence, because we base our show on the scientific evidence, you know, they need to ask themselves, why aren't you doing this? Why do you think that 9/11 Truth is a fringe group? Where is this mentality coming from? Is it actually coming from within you, or is it coming from another source? Or is it coming from your favorite media person? And it's not just from Fox News. You know, we've played a lot of stuff from Fox News here, but it happens, like I said, on the left too. Okay, it's you know, this kind of gatekeeper mentality that, that's a fringe topic. It may not be as in your face in some cases. You know, it might be a certain news site refusing to cover the fact that Netroots Nation excluded architects and engineers from its conference, claiming that, you know, any kind of protest of that is a fabricated issue. You know, so it happens there too. But the question is, where is that mentality coming from? Well, it's being programmed into you. You know, there's jokes, and there's jokes that people make about, you know, well, that's the reason they call it programming, because they're programming ideas into you. They're telling you how to think, and not even as directly as, say, Bill O'Reilly. Now, you know, I talked about Glenn Beck earlier, and I talked about Bill O'Reilly. They're speaking directly to the right of this country, telling them exactly how to think, but they're also speaking to the left, because then the dialogue becomes, well, no, I'm not a 9/11 truther. Oh, how dare I? I would love to see it, and see somebody say, I am a 9/11 truther, damn right, and here's the reason, and boom, boom, boom. That's the appropriate response, but when the left reacts with all this, you know, defensiveness, and it's not just the left, anyone reacts with any defensiveness, then that sends a message to the public as well.
Yeah, this is old school propaganda, and when Sean Hannity is being told the actual statistics of the survey that was done at the university at Wisconsin, whether they wanted that course, and he's telling them that it's 60% plus people wanted it, and he's talking right over him, talking about most people think you are nuts, he says, quote unquote. And that's what this is about, going straight to demonizing the truth. And that is all you have to play when you can't address the science and the facts. You have no other choice. This is the nature of tyranny. This is the nature of propaganda. I believe, Andy, this is a blueprint for implementing tyranny and fascism and the fear of government and the fear of dissenting, fear of standing behind science and reason. We talked about how they have stolen the science and the reason. They have tried to implement their computer model simulations and defend it with mass media propaganda. That's what we're seeing. That's what we played. That's what we have heard. It is my strong opinion that this is a blueprint for tyranny. So here we are. We're talking about all these examples of the media basically not only censoring 9/11, but demonizing those that put an effort into understanding 9/11 truth and who pursue 9/11 truth. One person that we all know who has been in the battlefield and exposing the official story of 9/11 is Jesse Ventura, Governor Ventura, former Governor Ventura of Minnesota. And this next segment, you want to tell us a little bit about it, Andy?
Sure. This clip is actually from right this week, and Jesse Ventura went on CNN on the Piers Morgan show, toe-to-toe with one of these Joker pundit people in Piers Morgan. And, you got to remember something about Jesse Ventura, is that, people make a big deal about the fact he was a wrestler. He was also a governor, and he was an underwater demolitions expert when he was in the U.S. military. So he knows his stuff, and he's raised questions about the science of 9/11 as well. Now, there's a lot of, there's stuff that in this clip that they talk about the warnings to the Bush administration, things like that, but pay attention to the part where they talk about Building 7. Now, something we haven't really talked about very much what we're going to be in later shows is how the BBC reported on the collapse of Building 7 before it even happened. There was a reporter from the BBC who was talking about how the building has collapsed, past tense, right? But the building is still standing behind her, okay? So, the BBC has never really explained this, and as Richard Gage says in Blueprint for Truth, because the BBC cited confusion from the day as is the reason that this happened, but Richard Gage says, well, does that make them psychic?
Absolutely. I think the history of the BBC is very clear. One of the ringleaders in terms of censoring 9/11 Truth and just all the facts about this event. I think there's no doubt about it. This confrontation, I found it interesting. Piers Morgan, again, this guy always represents the establishment, and he, of course, tries to challenge Jesse. I think it's very interesting how the reaction of the crowd, amazingly, kind of goes along with something I've said many times, Andy, and that's it. When you talk to people at the street level or in schools, of course, there are a lot of people that still believe the official story myth, but at the same time, so many people understand people either doubt the official story or they pretty much get it that the official story just simply can't be true, or they're full-on truthers, or they're somewhere in the middle where they get it that the buildings were blown up and it just doesn't fit the story. So we see that all the time, but when you look at TV and you watch TV shows, and we played a segment here in this show, we're going to, right, at the very end, one of the segments from a Hollywood TV show that we're going to play a little bit later in the show, and you constantly see the pattern where Hollywood and the mainstream media and the establishment constantly projects the image that somehow if you understand 9/11 Truth, you must be in the minority. So that is not the case, and this video clip does support that. Again, the audience clearly with Jesse Ventura, and they do get his points, and to the chagrin of Piers Morgan.
And what I want, the audience to pay attention to, Bernie, when Jesse Ventura states the fact of what had happened, that Piers Morgan automatically goes on the defensive, and he's, goes to this, are you accusing the BBC? It's a well-respected news organization. All irrelevant, because it doesn't change facts, and he actually goes on to deny facts in this, because he tells Jesse that he needs a break. This patronizing, talking down to a guy, who basically has more credentials in his past than Piers Morgan does. But this is what you see. So if you can't shout somebody's head off, if you can't bully them, you can't do that with Jesse Ventura, then you can patronize them. You can try to talk down to them, and you can deny reality. When all else fails, deny. Okay, then that's what what they're doing here. So they're hoping that the people just kind of believe the mainstream media pundit instead of the truth. And what Jesse's stating here is truth. The BBC did report on the fall of Building 7 before it happened.
Absolutely.
How do you explain that?
Absolutely. What incredible denial. This is textbook denial, people. So let's play that right now. Tell us, Piers Morgan.
It's a failure of intelligence. Everyone's accepted
No, it
that.
wasn't. We knew before with Condoleezza Rice's memo on August 6th when it stated right in the memo, bin Laden to steal planes and run them into buildings. And more stuff is coming out now also, how much the Bush administration ignored the intelligence. It was almost like they ignored it because they wanted it to happen.
Oh, come off it, Jesse.
No, not oh, come off it. Wait a minute.
No.
Every war starts with a false flag operation.
You can't, in all seriousness, sit there and try and make out anybody.
Okay, let me ask you this, Piers. Wait a minute. Let me ask you something. How much studying have you actually done of 9/11 other than what the government's told you and what mainstream media has told you? I've been studying it 4 years.
I was editor of a national newspaper.
I've talked to
covered it in depth every day for 5-6 months.
Really?
So I know a lot about it.
Well,
one thing I do know is...
Let me ask you this,
You cannot say that any member of the Bush administration knew it was going to happen or wanted it to happen. It's a ridiculous thing to say.
Ridiculous. Okay, let's talk about your BBC. I have a tape of a BBC reporter broadcasting directly back to England talking about a third building has collapsed. World Trade Center Building 7 talks for 7 minutes. All the while she's talking World Trade Center Building 7 is still standing right behind her. It didn't fall for another half hour, yet they were doing a pre-broadcast back to England that, yes, it's true,
you need to
that
take
this
a break
building fell and it hadn't fallen yet.
If you're trying to make out the British Broadcasting Company, one of the most respected news organisations in the world, was inventing huge buildings falling over, you need to have a break, Jesse. We'll come back after the break, and we'll talk about Israel and Iran.
Are you kidding me? This is a fact, my friend.
Unbelievable. This is how they're doing it, people. These sound bites that we have played today, they are projecting this mass media opinion, and they're, as you said, Andy, they're showing the unassuming audience what you're not supposed to believe. And none of it is based on science and reason. None of the clips that we played today, except for Kevin Barrett talking some science and some reason there, nobody else even brought up science and reason. Or, I guess Rosie O'Donnell tried to do it in one of the clips we played earlier. But these guys are against science. They hate reason. And that's why I think, to the question of the day, yes, the Glenn Beck is dangerous. Anybody who betrays the science and just goes for wishful thinking and computer model simulations just for the sake of keeping power is dangerous. For no other reason, you are against humanity, and we are meant to love one another and work together as humanity. This is a peace movement. This has nothing to do with violence. There is nobody supporting terrorism. And except we do see that the establishment has done many and says many things that does support these overall global terrorist activities. And we wish they would stop, and we wish that they would resort back to science and reason. That's what this is all about. So.
But this is another example, though, of why you have to speak unapologetically about this information, okay? You know, with Deborah Medina, she kind of disavowed, and there was controversy about that, 9/11 Truth afterwards. And I understand the politics. And you see this happen with the Ron Paul people. And I'm not talking about Ron Paul's stance on the issue, but like you can hear an interview from from people within the campaign about some of these people are 9/11 truthers and we have to distance ourselves from them. Even if you don't want to take a stance on 9/11 truth, you can't. You still have to speak unapologetically, not only just for civil rights, but for the fact that people have a right to do this and not step away from your fellow man. We can find so many reasons to exclude ourselves from each other, to not stand with each other, to not find common ground on the issues that we all care about. And what that ends up doing is it ends up dividing us. It ends up, in us spinning our wheels, not getting anything done, okay? So, I said it before, they're creating a new paradigm, and they're trying to present this idea that this is something you need to run from, that you need to begin with an apologetic tone just by even broaching the subject. Oh, please don't think I'm a conspiracy theorist, but, that Building 7 falling looks a little suspicious. Okay, no. You need to speak it confidently, and when they stick the finger in your face, you stick it right back in their face and put it right up their nose and try to touch their brain, if there is any up there, and make them see reason. Now, you're not going to make somebody like Glenn Beck or Sean Hannity or Bill O'Reilly see reason. They have a job to do, and they're doing it, okay? I don't care what Glenn Beck has to say, other than the fact that it influences people, because people may not be awake to this. They're going with what they know, and they're fleeing. They may not be happy with something Obama's doing, so they're fleeing to people like him, thinking that this is truth that they're getting, but they're not getting real truth. They're not getting real science. They're getting a show. And that's what it is. It's a show. And these people they're not like the people and experts speak out. People like Glenn Beck, Bill O'Reilly, these pundits on TV are really experts at nothing but running their mouths.
Exactly.
Okay? And it's all propaganda.
It's all propaganda. I've mentioned it before. People should check out a documentary that's available online. It's called The Century of the Self. People who know me, I bring that up a lot. The Century of the Self is a documentary that outlines the history and the life of Edward Bernays, the work that he did, more so than his entire life. And he is considered by many the founding father of marketing. And in this documentary, which is a 4-part documentary, the first part being called The Happiness Machines, this documentary outlines so well how Edward Bernays discovered in the early part of the 20th century, he discovers exactly how to implement mass brainwashing and mass mind control just by using propaganda, mass media, billboards, advertising, and marketing, and all this kind of stuff to influence public opinion. Edward Bernays would tell you that the job, what we have played today with Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity and all these video clips, that he would be very proud of these men because they introduce no reason whatsoever, but they introduce opinions that would hopefully appeal to the masses' subconscious drive, this wishful thinking. So that's on that, so look that up. Well, we have one other segment, and we talked about it. I know we're running out of time. In the future, maybe we'll play some Hollywood segments. We're going to wrap with this segment. We want to play only a few seconds. This is a segment. It's more of a Hollywood to show the audience how Hollywood's in on this very much with this Edward Bernays marketing mass mind control thing. It's a mass media and Hollywood entertainment agenda, people. This comes from the TV show called The Beast. And Andy, you handed this to me to explain to the audience what's the background of this. This is Hollywood portraying 9/11 truthers as evil and something you don't want, lunatic. And explain to the audience exactly the whole situation here.
Sure. Now, I've never actually watched The Beast, I don't really watch too much TV anymore. But in this segment, if you watch the video, and we'll have it at 9/11 Freefall, obviously it's an undercover cop going into some drug addict's apartment. It must be some drug dealer, and the guy's literally smoking something. It's crack, pot, whatever, while he's talking about this. And actually, after he finishes up, he offers whatever he's smoking to the other guy. So what they're associating is that 9/11 truth. You talk any 9/11 truth, you're smoking crack, you're smoking pot. They associate with that, but they also establish or associate straw man arguments with this. You hear the guy say that there's no planes hit the buildings. No reasonable person will say that no plane hit the building. He claims it's CGI and things like that. So there's a lot going on in this. There's straw man arguments. There's association with drug addiction.
By the way, we're talking about World Trade Center in New York City, not the Pentagon, right?
That's correct. Yes. And so so what that's what they're associating here. And basically, it's just a way of working it into your fiction. You think you're just watching a TV show, but you're actually being propagandized and programmed to see the world in a certain way. So let's go ahead and roll that.
Hey, you here for my launch cards?
Look, man, if I could just get what I came for, and I'll be on my way.
You a truther or a sheep?
What?
9/11 was a false flag operation, man. Wake up. A self-inflicted wound to control the masses. There was no planes. All done with holograms and CGI.
Yeah, man, look, if I can just...
What's your rush, bro?
All right, well, there you go, people. That from the show The Beast. Clearly in this show, although obviously our audience can't see the visuals, but as you said, the character is smoking up, and they're portrayed as some lunatic drug addict, the whole thing, not the guy with his head straight and maybe not even as normal as us, Andy, with a radio show and all that. Instead, this guy is off the deep end, and there you go, another association. 9/11 truth equals people that are lunatic and off the deep end. Not the case, people. Thousands and thousands of scholars all over the world and people that care about humanity, that care about freedom, and care about justice and accountability are leading the way in this powerful movement that is worldwide, that the dying mainstream media is afraid to look at, and that is one of the reasons why they're dying. I have personally, I can attest that when I talk to people out there in the streets and wherever I go, most people are catching on. They know about 9/11 Truth. They understand. This thing is fun. It's easy. 9/11 Truth will set you free, people. I've said this kind of half-jokingly in some of our shows. Are you depressed? Are you struggling through life, not sure what's going on, worried about the government and all these crazy things that are happening? Take a hold of yourself. The truth will set you free. The Founding Fathers were not wrong. It is still about accountability, truth, freedom, and justice, democracy, and all that. So we are fighting for that. We're fighting for humanity. We believe that everything can be done peacefully. This is a peaceful movement of scholars and ordinary people just like you and I who care about not only the victims of 9/11, but we care about our country. We want to restore our country, and we want to be able to celebrate freedom and the respect of all people, all religions. All people deserve respect in a peaceful and blessed way. That's what this is about, and that is it, people. That wraps up this show. show. What you have heard is the hard end of the mainstream media side of things, where everything is scary. Everybody who stands for truth and accountability is a dangerous terrorist. They're crazy. They're lunatic. Yeah, right. We present the science. These individuals on this show today equated, as Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck, equated people not answering to their challenges as dangerous or cowardice, or just telling how Juan Williams talked about it, how suspicious it is. Or he said, quote, it invites suspicion. These guys are equating people not responding to their challenges as suspicious. Well, we're challenging them. And the 9/11 Truth Movement has been challenging all these guys for all these networks for a very long time, and they refuse to respond to that. So we consider that very, very suspicious. And with that, we'll wrap up. People, you're listening to 9/11 Free Fall. You can reach us on 911freefall.com and nolineradio.org. Till next week, this is Andy Steele with me here, and I'm Bernie Suarez, and this is 9/11 Free Fall, saying goodbye, everybody, and have a great night.
As clear as the evidence is for the destruction of Building 7 by explosives, the evidence is even more clear in the case of the Twin Towers. When you look at it with a new pair of glasses and looking at the forensic science-based evidence, does it look like a gravitational collapse to you? What about those floors, those pancakes? This is a pancake collapse. We're looking for some pancakes down at the Loth. But what I'm looking for is 110 floors with this kind of metal decking underneath 4 and 5 inches thick of concrete. An acre in size, each of them. 110 acres of these. How many floors do we find down at the bottom? Not 50? Not 10? Not even 1. We don't even find metal decking down there. Or concrete. There's hardly any macroscopic chunks of concrete. What happened to the metal decking? What happened to the concrete? And this dust made it almost across to New Jersey, across the river. Thick, billowing, laying a carpet of 4 to 6 inches thick around lower Manhattan, pulverized to 100 micron to 10 mil particles, almost like talcum powder, some of it. It's very, very fine. Where's the grinder that produced this? 90,000 tons of it. In these clouds that expanded 10 times the volume of the buildings themselves in just 30 seconds. Now, the available gravitational potential in the whole building is about 110,000 kilowatt hours. That's basically the weight of the building times its height above the ground, evened out. But the expansion of these clouds has been calculated to require about 10 times that energy in heat, which produces that expansion. So we have a problem here. $700 bone fragments, a half an inch long, found on top of the skyscraper across the street. Think about that one. There were 2,749 victims, but only 300 whole bodies were found. 20,000 pieces of bodies found. 6,000 small enough to fit into a test tube. 1,100 victims completely unaccounted for. In other words, no pieces large enough to gain any DNA from, vaporized. 200 pieces were matched to one single person. Can fire and a gravitational collapse account for this massive pulverization of people? Architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth are at the apex of the 9/11 Truth movement. Why? Because we have those who have the necessary credibility to raise eyebrows and gain attention. We need to act. The power of truth is greater than the power of the lie. So get informed and begin to let the truth speak through you.